Several decades ago, a party of young people, we were on Mount Athens, and we were in the company of a month, Athonite month, and enjoyed the lessons of his experience. The monk had become a monk at an early age, so one of us asked him, there is this phrase, you should marry when you're young, or you should become a monk when you're young. How did you experience becoming a monk at this age? And he answered, the truth is that I wanted too much to become a monk, and so it was not very difficult. But there was one thing that was particularly hard for me. I could not stay up during the vigils. I used to sleep. Once I thought about coffee as a solution. I took a glass of strong coffee before the vigil, and I could take it and be concentrated and pray. I was so glad with the solution I had found, and I wanted to share it with an elder monk. But he criticized me. He said that this is not an exercise. It's better to sleep or struggle during the vigil and fight with my own strengths. This would be more valuable. So, with great regret, I followed his advice, and since then, in all these years, I have continued to exercise with great physical effort. This story impressed me. In my mind, it was classified as an experience from Mount Athos. Of course, I used to remember about it when we discussed about strength and enhancement, but I didn't give it the value it should be given until one day in a conference a specialist mentioned the same example. He didn't speak of vigils. He spoke about our everyday life and the use of coffee or tea or vitamins as means of enhancement, things that we take as some things that go without saying, without further reflection. So, improvement and enhancement. All interventions that include implants, modifications to the human body, as well as the administration of substances that can increase the functionality of our bodily mechanisms. This leads to a specific upgrading of the human species, which is generally called superhumanism. But in a broader perspective, it's a general concept of duty, what we call posthumanism, duty to improve the human nature. This is something that we've heard about many times in this conference, so I will not expand further at this stage. So if we wanted to put things in a row, we would say the following thing. First of all, we must recognize that there is an endogenous and inherent trend in humans to improve their skills, and when technology helps them to cover some of their weaknesses, they will make sure to make use of this possibility. However, this in itself opens a number of secondary issues. How safe will it always be to do so? Is it safe from side effects, for instance? The social injustice. How will these tensions be dealt with when all members of society do not have the same opportunities to access these interventions? What will be the anthropological and by extension social model that will cover those weaknesses? The desire for improvement will not be finite. It will be an endless and undetermined process uh, without satisfaction. How are we going to cover this mental gap created by the consumption of these capabilities? Another aspect has to do with the definition of boundaries between a treatment and an enhancement of the body. What usually happens, in other words, is that research results in advanced therapies for diseases that cause human suffering under the pressure of human arrogance as a general rule and economic interests around it. Technological applications are directed towards making use of those treatments for aesthetic or generally non-medical reasons in order to enhance human capabilities. But who will set the boundaries? How feasible is it to have this in an open society where human freedom seeks expression by asserting and exercising every relevant right? The reflections developed around these points also encounter some additional issues. One of them has to do with consolidating the social perception of progress, the evolution of societies and individuals, and the obligation to continuously improve them. Thus, the type of human or the type of human being that uses a technology without any excuse is being widespread. It's not a problem in its own right for this person. There is no reason to discuss it. And if we are in a church, this will categorize the desire as sinful. So the boundaries between treatment and enhancement will be blurred, and in this way, the person will think to have done away with any concern. It, we must bear in mind here, however, that the pluralism that characterizes our society does not favor the voices that seek attention through self exclusion. And the interest of ecclesiastical teaching requires first and foremost an understanding of the causes that determine the attitudes of social interlocutors and naturally convincing arguments. In other words, if we want to explain why there are risks when human improvement is sought, we must first see why this improvement is sought. What can be noted in this regard, however, is that the temptation of posthumanism is a rather distorted way of expressing a fundamental demand of the human condition to exceed one's living conditions, to be revived into superior spheres of existence. This includes also the failure of a response to the threat of damage of death surrounding the individual and the social groups he or she belongs. But what appears to be forgotten or overlooked is precisely the dynamics of the relationship that is best expressed in community with God and fellow people. If this reluctance to respond to the profoundly loving, i.e., erotic call of the Creator could possibly be interpreted as another symptom of the radical de-Christianization of Western societies, and posthumanism thoughts are there, despite the strong similarities with the Edenic aspiration of the "you shall be as gods" at the Babel project. This disregard for the whole debate is a source of great concern. because the post-humanist prospects may be uh, projected as progressive ideas, and the reservation towards them defined as conservatism. But the truth is that it uh, leads to more inequalities that will persist and widen at many levels. For example, who will have access to these technologies? What will happen to those who will not have access? What will happen to the regions of the world that are lagging behind in terms of technology? The debate is also about the person itself, the person in the center. I want to remember better. I want to be the one to remember better. I want to be more resilient. In another in other words, I want to be better than I am now, and better than others. This is certainly an exodus of modern social values in the sphere of technology, in a competitive situation where where collective endeavors decline and the claim of enjoyment prevails. The necessary cost is not taken into account. In another area, hybris that led to a change in climate is something that hasn't been realized, and this is unpleasant. But in any case, it is clear that the main focus of the debate is on the sustainability that the values that prevail in our societies guarantee or not. And this clearly concerns the extent, concerns all bioethical issues. So we certainly hope that our society will show its deepest moral reflexes, which will not allow the transition to an irreversible dystopia. But we should also look at our general attitude, our own attitude, beyond the correctness of our moral imperatives, because we may be arguing for transhumanism as sanctification or deification, the graceful transition from by nature to for nature, and not the vain soteriology promised by our technological capabilities. We can even highlight an anti posthumanism as the path of the cross, the care for the brother and, and humiliation against the perpetual improvement of skills as a demonstration of superiority. But realize that the achievement of happiness and prolongation is not there. Finally, we can even prolong death thanks to technical means, and we may realize that these things does not mean what actually was promised, and it's most important to preserve humanity and humanism. Once again, there's a duty on those of us who have to demonstrate the authenticity of the ecclesiastical proposal. If our own lives, our actions, and our institutions work on the basis of power games and power struggles, anti posthumanism grievances will only sound as caricatures. If we complain only superficially, we show our spiritual sloth to understand the depth of the present. If our predominant concern is the well being of people and our relatives, of ourselves and our relatives, we have already accepted the core of the post-humanist ideas. We theologically live at a time which has also opened the issue of anthropology in its applied and meaningful version. The response to the increasing medicalization and technologization, let's say, of human problems is not given by uh, by taking ideological authenticity, but by showing proposals for the authenticity of life. We also know that not only the kingdom of God of heavens, but also all good things do not only come by observation. Thank you very much.